Former Taipei mayor, rising political star Ko Wen-je has been charged with taking bribes. Taiwan's presidential office practices its first civilian response to an invasion by China. "20 years on from Boxing Day's tsunami, survivors reflect on their losses and the road to recovery." Plus, new Taipei residents push the government to preserve a historic neighborhood. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Kavat. Former Taipei Mayor Ko Wen-je, once a rising political star and a presidential candidate earlier this year, has been charged with accepting bribes and embezzling public funds. Taipei prosecutors are now seeking a prison sentence of nearly 30 years. Tiffany Wong has more.
28 years and 6 months. That's how long Taipei district prosecutors are seeking for former Taipei City Mayor Ko Wen-je on charges of corruption. They say Ko accepted bribes over a construction project while in office, worth over $500,000, and that he mishandled $2 million in political donations during his unsuccessful bid for president earlier this year.
柯姓被告有为市长就宣誓条例所为之应恪守国家法令、不收受贿赂等事实，足证其委员矫饰，饭后态度不佳。
Ko is a former medical doctor turned politician who founded the Taiwan People's Party in 2019. He found strong support among Taiwan's youth who liked his straightforward manner and among those who wanted to see a third force in Taiwan's politics, long dominated by the Democratic Progressive Party and Kuomintang. His party is standing with him, and they're calling for Ko to be released from detention while the investigation continues.
我相信大家 都有一个共同的感受，这个共同的感受是关押了柯文哲主席4个月以后，拿不出任何新的像样的证据，竟然敢诬指柯文哲主席收受不法的贿赂。
Ko expressed an intention to stand down as party leader and asked for special permission while being held incommunicado to send in a resignation letter. Some speculate this was meant to distance the party from his corruption investigation. But the TPP says they have not received such a letter and is still calling Ko their leader. Many of Ko's supporters see the corruption charges as retaliation by the DPP to shut down the politician and his party, and the corruption charges are further fueling their stand against the establishment. Eason Chen and Tiffany Wong for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan is practicing how it would lead a civilian response to an attack on the country. For the first time, the country's presidential office is holding tabletop exercises with ministries, officials and private observers. Reese Ayres is live in Taipei with more. Reese, what exactly are these exercises and how do they help Taiwan prepare?
Well, there were 3 hours of exercises simulating military escalations between China and Taiwan and role-playing how civil society would respond in that scenario. Civil society, of course, being civilians and non-governmental organizations. Now, the exercises focused on where China would use perhaps grey zone warfare tactics and where Taiwan is on the verge of conflict. Some of the key takeaways from the exercises today, how to train and actually mobilize civilians in the event of a conflict, how to best manage resources and protect and repair critical infrastructure relating to energy and transportation and also financial institutions and also, of course, medical and evacuation procedures. The war games also identified weaknesses in response mechanisms. Now, those participating in the war games, as you said, there were officials and also private observers from around Taiwan. They weren't allowed to prepare any speeches before attending the exercises. Everything had to be improvised, and that was to better simulate a real conflict scenario. And it all comes at an increased time where there are increasing threats from China, with several large military drills around Taiwan just this year.
And Reese, what value do these exercises hold? Isn't it the military's job to mobilize in case of a conflict?
Of course, the military will be on the front line, but President Lai Ching-te really wants to emphasize how important a whole nation response would be to a conflict with China to avoid panic and total societal collapse. Now, an analyst that TaiwanPlus spoke to earlier today said there could be secondary reasons for holding these exercises, and one of those could be to send a message to Beijing that Taiwan is ready for any possible eventuality.
Because if there's a Taiwan contingency, then it's not only for the jobs of the military, but also for the whole society. It's also a sign of the deterrence, because China knows that the whole society is ready for that, and then it will raise up the cost of using force.
Now, the issue of defense and China is still highly contentious in Taiwanese politics and amongst the public as well. But through this highly politicized Civil Defense Preparedness Committee, President Lai is hoping to unite the nation in the face of increasing threats from Beijing.
Thank you, Reese. That was Reese Ayres live for us in Taipei. Lawmakers from the ruling Democratic Progressive Party have asked the country's cabinet to veto a series of controversial legal amendments passed by the opposition. The DPP says it will seek a temporary injunction against the 3 sets of amendments to laws on recall elections, budget allocation and the functioning of the Constitutional Court. It will also ask that same court, the country's highest, to rule on the constitutionality of the amendments before they take effect. The proposed changes to the court would force it to have at least 10 sitting justices to issue a ruling. Currently, there are only 8 justices on the bench. The opposition Kuomintang says the ruling party is exploiting a legal loophole.
今天我们宪诉法已经通过了，10个人才能开会，结果你8个人就要硬开会，用你这空窗期来碾压立法权。
The cabinet is expected to send the court amendments back to the legislature by January 2nd. A man has been convicted of attempted murder and sentenced to 10 years in jail for stabbing passengers on a central Taiwan city's metro. The 20-year-old stabbed multiple people on a Taichung metro train in May, injuring 2 before other passengers subdued him. The attack happened on the 10th anniversary of a deadly Taipei metro stabbing. The man had a history of mental illness. Multiple investigations have been opened into the cause of an Azerbaijan Airlines crash that's killed at least 38 people. The plane, which was on its way to the Chechen city of Grozny, flew hundreds of miles off course before it crashed in Kazakhstan. Kenis Karanta reports.
A Christmas emergency turned deadly. This passenger plane was en route from Azerbaijan capital Baku to southern Russia when it changed course, instead flying into Kazakhstan, where it attempted to make an emergency landing and ultimately crashed. Social media footage shows the plane descending steeply, then bursting into flames as it collided with the ground. Of those on board, 38 were killed.
По предварительной информации, на борту самолета находилось 69 человек, из них 5 человек экипажа. Из них 42 граждан Азербайджана, 16 граждан России, 6 граждан Казахстана и 3 гражданина Кыргызстана.
Other reports have said there were 67 people on board. Firefighters put out the blaze while survivors were pulled out of the wreckage. But the question many are asking is what caused the plane to crash? Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, and Russia have all opened investigations as conflicting preliminary reports emerge. Azerbaijan's president said the plane changed course due to bad weather and was heading to an airport in a Kazakh coastal city when it crashed. Independent Russian media outlets have reported the plane may have been shot down by a Russian missile, with some reporting that Ukraine hit Chechnya, where the plane was headed, with drone strikes that same day. But Russia's aviation authority has instead said the plane diverted after it collided with a bird. Russian President Vladimir Putin sent help to Kazakhstan and offered his condolences.
Имени хочу выразить соболезнования семьям погибших и всем пострадавшим. Будем надеяться на их выздоровление.
Azerbaijan Airlines has suspended flights from its capital to Grozny and one other city in southern Russia until investigations are done. For now, there is much speculation and little certainty about whether what happened here was due to natural causes or a man-made one. Justin Wu and Cadence Quaranta for TaiwanPlus.
Japan Airlines says it has been hit by a cyber attack, disrupting domestic and international flights. The reported attack took place in the early hours of Thursday and affected the internal servers of Japan's second biggest carrier. Passengers were seen scrambling to check in at Tokyo's Haneda Airport as several flights were delayed by up to 1 hour. Japan Airlines says there could be further delays and cancellations. Police are investigating the source of the attack. It's been 20 years since one of the strongest earthquakes ever recorded triggered a deadly tsunami which killed hundreds of thousands of people in 14 countries. Coastal communities in Thailand were among those badly hit. Survivors there are still finding peace with what and who were lost. Joyce Dennell reports.
Each morning in Panga, southern Thailand, fisherman Biran Glatale gathers his gear for his daily catch, earning a living from the waters that took his parents' life. Glatale was orphaned in 2004 by the Indian Ocean 9.1 magnitude earthquake and tsunami, one of the deadliest natural disasters in recorded history, which claimed more than 220,000 lives in over a dozen countries. Glatale was just 8 years old.
ไม่ตอนนั้นมันแบบไม้มันหักมาครับมันไม่เชิงแบบเป็นคืนแบบปกติมันมาแบบเสียงดังเลยครับแบบเลี้ยแบบมาโบะคนในหมู่บ้านเลยครับโบะเตือนหมดเลย
Along with some neighbors, Glatale climbed to higher ground, but his parents did not make it. And there were many more like him who were orphaned. According to the United Nations, between 1,000 and 2,000 children in Thailand lost at least one parent to the tsunami. The country's southern beaches were among the worst hit, seeing more than 5,000 people killed, around half of them foreign tourists. Another 3,000 people remain missing. Watana Sitirashot's uncle was one of the people never found. He had cared for Sitirashot since his parents' divorce. After losing his uncle, Sitirashot became one of the first residents of this home, founded by 2 social workers for tsunami orphans. Now he's the Secretary General and has helped expand care to over 90 children without primary caregivers.
ไม่มีใครอยู่กับเราไปตลอดต้องไปข้างหน้าคืออะไรที่มันเสียไปแล้วเราไปแก้ไขไม่ได้เราต้องไปข้างหน้า
Fisherman Glatale has spent the last 20 years rebuilding his love for the sea. It still reminds him of loss, but he says the water has also cared for him, giving him food to eat and a means to earn a living. His outlook has also taught his wife, Janjira Kampradit, to live each day to the fullest.
ชีวิตมันก็ไม่แน่นอนนะว่าคนเราต้องทำดีไว้การทำดีมันช่วยให้คนช่วยเราเยอะเราทำดีไว้นะชีวิตคนเรามันไม่รู้ว่ามันจะยาวหรือมันจะสั้น
20 years on, the devastation and grief from the Indian Ocean tsunami remain deep among survivors here in Thailand, holding on to memories of loved ones as they embrace life moving forward. Patrick Chen and Joyce Sin for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up after the break, Taiwan had the best performing stock market in Asia in 2024. Stay tuned to find out why.
Hey guys, this is Dennis from the Taipei Tonight Show. I want to thank you all for watching and supporting our show. Now we have a jam-packed season coming your way, from business to sports, entertainment to culture. Singers, actors, songwriters, all are going to be on the stage. Oh, remember that good-looking dude from The Brother Son, Justin Chan? That's right. He's going to be on the stage with me. Oh, and also my good friend Archie Gao from CSI. He's going to be on this stage with me. And also from Taiwan, the beautiful comedian Kylie. That's right. She's going to be on the stage with me. We have been busy recording, not just in the studio, but out of the studio as well. We brought the whole crew to the Sundance Film Festival 2024 in Taipei, and also the Taipei Fashion Week. So don't miss out. Tune in to the Taipei Tonight Show.
Taipei Tonight Show, every Friday, 8:15 p.m. on TaiwanPlus.
We bring you stories from Taiwan.
Every day of the week.
Our reporters travel the nation.
Exploring the issues that matter to you. News from here in Taiwan and around the world.
What's up, Taiwan? On TaiwanPlus.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. A Christmas Day attack on Ukraine was not enough to dampen the holiday spirit in the country. Harel Hughes reports on Russia's massive aerial attack targeting the country's power grid.
A Christmas Eve prayer for peace, interrupted by the sound of air raid alerts across Ukraine, as Russia launched a massive aerial attack, lasting through the night and into the early hours of Christmas morning. Though families greeted the day sheltering in Kyiv's metro station, people were determined to celebrate the religious holiday.
Свято не відміняється, так, куття, узвар, блюда, все дома чекають. І по гостях сьогодні поїдемо, і до хресних поїдемо, діти виспляться.
Overnight, Russia launched over 170 missiles and drones into Ukraine, aimed at the country's energy infrastructure. The 13th large-scale attack this year, targeting the power grid. In the eastern city of Kharkiv, 500,000 people were left without power as temperatures hit freezing. The attack has been condemned by world leaders and called inhumane by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
Все, що нам треба, мирно жити на своїй землі, бачити сонце, своє небо, а в ньому різдвяну зорю, а не іранські шахеди і російські ракети. Але декому скучно і не хватає двіжухи.
But in Kyiv, the air raid sirens couldn't drown out the Christmas spirit.
Настрій святковий. Ялинка вже стоїть дуже гарно. Настрій. Погода, звісно, хочеться, напевно, щоб був сніг трошки, щоб і настрій як в дитинстві було. Щоб хочеться побажати, щоб скоріше все це прийшов мир, злагода і щоб було все добре в нашій країні.
As neighboring Russia intensifies targeted attacks against them, Ukrainians end the year praying for peace, hopeful that what lies ahead are better days, safer, and without the need for air raid sirens. Howard Jung and Harel Hughes for TaiwanPlus.
South Korea's main opposition party has introduced an impeachment bill against Prime Minister and acting President Han Duck-soo for refusing to appoint 3 judges to the country's constitutional court.
한덕수 총리가 오늘 담화를 통해 헌법상 책임인 헌법재판관 임명을 하지 않겠다고 공식 입장을 밝혔습니다. 권한 대행이 아니라 내란 대행임을 인정한 담화였습니다.
The bill comes less than 2 weeks after the now suspended President Yoon Suk-yeol was himself impeached for his botched declaration of martial law. The country's constitutional court must confirm Yoon's impeachment, and the first hearing in the case begins Friday. The opposition has asked Han to officially appoint 3 judges to the court who have already been approved by the legislature. Han says he will not appoint them without consensus among political parties. Taiwan's main stock index, the Taiex, gained nearly 30% in 2024, outperforming all other major Asian markets. The major growth is credited largely to investment in technologies used in artificial intelligence, especially semiconductors. 90% of the world's most advanced chips are made in Taiwan. South Korea's index saw the worst performance in the region, losing about 8%. For more on Taiwan's market performance this year, reporter Chris Gorin spoke with senior economist at the consultancy Taiex, Gary Ng.
Taiwan's main stock index, the Taiex, gained more than 28% this year, outperforming all other markets in Asia. What do you chalk these major gains up to?
Well, indeed, when you look at the performance of the Taiwanese equities market, it is not only performing the best in the local currency in Asia, and even in USD terms, because other currencies have depreciated so much with the USD, that Taiwan dollar is also one of the most resilient ones. So I think the most important point is really about this very strong artificial intelligence boom that we actually see globally, not only in the US, but when you look at the supply chain, Taiwan is definitely one of the market that is like the closest to all of these opportunities. So all of this has basically filled the prospect domestically that people are earning more money than before, so they are actually investing more on the local stock market as well. So I think all of these factors basically bring to the fact that, well, the momentum has actually been quite strong in Taiwan.
Has this growth mostly been concentrated in a few companies, or has it been more evenly distributed across the economy?
I think it's a very common phenomenon, especially after COVID, that we do see across all the market that most of this gain are actually quite concentrated in some specific companies. And for the case of Taiwan, which is actually quite linked to the US as well, it's really about this very highly concentrated gain in the tech sector. And of course, some may argue that, well, it's true that there may be this Dutch disease, which basically means that one part of the economy is growing much faster than the others. But still, at least we managed to see some strong sectors in Taiwan, which is the tech sector.
Obviously, there's a lot of factors that could impact the economy in the coming year, not the least of which being the incoming Trump administration in the United States and its potential tariffs. What's your outlook for Asia in 2025?
Indeed, if you look at all these policy uncertainties, and I do believe that the Trump administration and the what he decided to do, right, will be one of the biggest sources of volatility that we will see next year. But again, it doesn't necessarily mean everything is bad for Asia. The positive sign remains that I do not think the U.S. can produce everything by itself. So even though there may be tariffs or etc., I mean, all the multinational companies in Asia, especially in the manufacturing sector, I'm sure they will find a way to actually mitigate such risks, because either they need to bypass the tariff by investing in the US, etc. But for Taiwan, I don't think these factors will change the fundamental trend that the world need more AI computing power, which basically means that chips will still be one of the most important commodities in the world. That will mean more corporate revenue for these companies.
That was Chris Gorin speaking with economist Gary Ng. Residents in New Taipei are pushing back against plans to demolish a centuries-old house next to the city's bygone canal system. They argue that what remains of the historic neighborhood deserves government protection. Wesley Lewis reports.
Lai Bijun and her family have lived in this home in New Taipei for 4 generations. It's now surrounded by towering apartment blocks. But the centuries-old house has stood the test of time, alongside a historic canal system called Liugong-jun that hasn't. And though one of the few remaining canals is right by the Lai family home, the house itself may not be here for much longer. A recent development proposal could see it demolished.
其实不是只有我焦作，还有更多就是对文史的爱好者，更希望把整个新店溪这个仅存刘公郡的，应该是最后的一块处女地，要把它保留下来吧。
Much of Liugong-jun dates back to the 18th century, built during Qing Dynasty rule in Taiwan, to serve the area's residents and farmers.
Once a vast network of crisscrossing waterways that spread across the Taipei Basin, Liugong-jun's wide canals and irrigation ditches have all but disappeared. Many of these waterways were filled in for roads like this one in the 1970s.
The most intact and exposed section is in New Taipei's Xingdian district. Local historians give educational tours here. They argue for granting Liu Gongjun cultural heritage status.
那今天如果说我们把它变成一个文化资产，它就是有经费可以维护嘛。一个文化资产，它就变成有权责单位在管理。
Ms. Lai and several New Taipei civic groups agree. They have held rallies urging the government to give Liu Gongjun cultural landscape status, assigned to historically significant man-made environments.
守护柳公圳，守护柳公圳，登陆文化景观，登陆文化景观，审议透明，审议透明。
The government has scheduled 2 inspections of Ms. Lai's house and of Liu Gongjun to consider whether the area merits the protected status.
我想我们今天如果提报文化景观，那我们会成立文化资产的保存会议的会刊跟会议。那后续我们会请专家学者来进行会刊。那会刊的部分，我们如果确定它具文化景观的保存价值，我们就会进行列车追踪。
For now, Ms. Lai waits for the government to decide her fate. She says she remains resolved to continue fighting for not only her right to keep her family home, but also for the preservation of her neighborhood's unique and enduring history. Klein Wang, Kama Xu, and Wesley Lewis for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. Before we go, check out South Korean artist Mi-rae Lee's exhibit at the Tate Modern in London. Lee says she was inspired by the gallery's history as a power station. I'm Ian Kavat. Take care. See you next time.